everybody, and welcome to the Virtual Delegate. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us here on this Wednesday afternoon, wherever you happen to be tuning in from across the world. This is your home of innovative, exciting ideas for your next virtual or hybrid event. My name is David Mead, and remember, throughout, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So don't forget to leave your comments. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, like all the cool kids are asking for on the YouTubes these days. But also, why not share this video to your feed so some of your other friends and event professionals can get involved as well? And if you do leave a comment of any kind while watching the show, then big news, you might win a chocolate bar. They're very low quality. They're all we could get, but we do have our names on the sticker. So why on earth wouldn't you like them? If you have missed any of the episodes that we've had so far, and remember there are 4 more to come, then type the word recordings inside the comments and we will make sure that we send you a link to absolutely everything you need so you don't miss a single episode of the Virtual Delegate. Well, you're here, I'm here, we're all here, so I think it's about time that we got started for episode 2 of the Virtual Delegate. Welcome here to the Virtual Delegate. We're coming to you from the home of Hybrid by Design events right here in Belfast, Northern Ireland at ICC Belfast. Now, when most of us dipped our toes into the wonderful world of virtual and remote events, I am entirely comfortable admitting that I think we all realized quite quickly that simply taking our in-person event and delivering it through Zoom wouldn't quite cut it. Designing an event that is fun, that is engaging, that is immersive, and most importantly, actually has a meaningful business impact is a challenge that we all faced. Now, while content has always been key, I think we can agree on that, we now need to squeeze in every single morsel of value from every second of our agendas. But how do we master content creation in virtual? Is it a different discipline? How do we shape it to create meetings and events that genuinely matter? Well, luckily today on the Virtual Delegate, we are joined by 3 experts to share their knowledge, their experience, and their expertise on just that. So let's take a look at who we've got coming up today. We're delighted to be joined by Nck Gold from Speakers Corner. Nck has booked more speakers than anyone else in the universe. He'll be able to advise on picking the right speaker for the right message and the right medium. We're also joined by Richard Bridge. Richard pivoted with his team about 12 to 14 months ago to do all virtual events, now working on hybrid. But the truth is, him and his team at Top Banana have worked on virtual and hybrid events for over a decade. Their experience is absolutely invaluable, and you'll be able to hear directly from Richard in today's episode. And we're also delighted to be joined by Rochelle Livingstone. Rochelle is one of the most experienced professional learning designers and facilitators in the world. She'll tell us how we can structure and plan our content to make sure that we move it from good to great. And of course, it is all about you as well. So please do make sure that you keep your questions and your comments coming throughout. We will put them to our speakers wherever possible. So first up, Rochelle is a learning consultant and a facilitator who creates and delivers learning experiences for clients all across the world. She currently works for Solved Together, spelled S-O-L-V-D. I'll be asking her why it's solved like that. It sounds very complicated to me, but also very trendy and quite hipster. Solved Together is an experienced learning and an experienced learning development and delivery business. And Rochelle herself is a learning professional with a career spanning 3 global organizations: Body Shop, L'Oreal, and British Airways. Any of us would kill to work with just one of them. She has managed to get into all 3. So she is also, while she was at British Airways, she was the co-chair of the BAME network. Rochelle is recognized as one of Google's top 100 I Am Remarkable facilitators worldwide. But more importantly, she's one of my top 3 favorite people on this particular episode. And we're delighted to be joined by her now. Rochelle, thank you so much for coming and joining us here on the Virtual Delegate.
Thank you for having me, David. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. Best Wednesday I've ever had. Rochelle, now I know that you've worked for your entire career delivering events live and in person. How did you find the move to virtual?
It was quite tricky at first. First of all, on a more personal note, kind of fighting with my mum on who's going to have the dining room to deliver workshops, or if she's doing work. But I think it's taken some time to get used to. I think it's all about creating a safe space for your audience, because they're also in their homes or in their kitchens or in their makeshift offices. And so designing content for those environments and for those individuals has taken a little bit more time for me to get used to as a facilitator, but also for those that I'm working with or delivering to.
So how have you shifted your learning design process to make sure that it is fit for virtual? Is it a fundamentally different experience now working with your clients to make sure that that remote message lands?
Yes, definitely. We have to go much deeper when we're doing kind of the discovery phase or research phase to really draw out those insights into the needs of the audience or the learner. And I think we're taking a lot more time to do that, because when you're designing the content now, it's not a lift and shift. You can't do that. It doesn't work. But we have to really think about all the factors that play a part in the design of that content and the time you have to deliver that content. So that could be the complexity of it. It could be the value add of that content. You really have to take the time in that design phase to think about the different styles that you'll deliver it in as well. So creating that kind of texture and variety. You know, we've all been in those workshops in the classroom where you see the facilitator open up the slide deck and there's 100 slides, literally 100 slides, and you think, what am I in for? Whereas now we can really start to play around with videos, with podcasts, with the whole experience, not just when they're with you as a facilitator, but pre and post as well. So you're truly creating an end-to-end experience with your content.
I mean, Rochelle, you can talk about slides. When I was there, it was acetates, but we'll move swiftly on from that horrible digression. Rochelle, tell me, how do you create texture? How do you create a variety, a sense of a different experience? Because you've mentioned that variety creates the opportunity for the learner to engage in the content in a much easier way. But how can we make it feel different and unusual so that every single speaker and every single breakout isn't identical to the last?
There's lots of ways. I think you have to be really open-minded, first of all, going into it, and be creative. Think outside the box, as it were. So it could be videos where you're thinking around getting people's personal experiences. It could be videos that are more tutorials. It could be getting someone to speak. I think one of the things that we probably lost a little bit from our kind of face-to-face and in-person interaction is that human connection and community. So you have to think about, how do you design that into virtual environments? So things like the breakout rooms, what are the types of activities that you're designing? So I like to think about things that are more reflective, things that are discussions, opportunities for people to put things into practice and go away and do things. It doesn't have to be in that particular moment. I think also designing time for feedback as well. So a lot of the time we'll have a breakout, you'll have like a mini debrief, and then you're on to the next part of the content. Actually bask in that feedback, create that time for your audience and for your attendees to share their learnings and pick up on little things along the way. I think other ways in terms of that variety, like I said, it's the pre and post, not just during the session itself. So I know working with you, David, we'll get you to do a video perhaps beforehand to really warm people up. It might be sending a care package, so it has little bits and bobs in there to help people get prepared for the experience that they're about to have with you or your other facilitators or SMEs.
And when it comes to making sure that that entire journey occurs, so there is a pre-virtual event experience, there is a post-virtual event experience, we know that no matter what the content is that we're delivering, psychology tells us that there's a forgetting curve. So within 24 hours, I think somewhere in the region of 80% of that content just goes, it leaves the learner's brain. Well, if a CEO is delivering an essential keynote, if someone is delivering virtually a message that they need their people to land, is it even more likely that they'll forget the content quicker in virtual, or are there opportunities to embed it in different ways?
Definitely the latter. There's definitely lots and lots of opportunities to help you embed it post leaving their screen. I think during those events, during those learning events, whatever it may be, if it's more of a 1 hour session or whether it's a 1 day or longer session, 1 week session, I think what's really key is making it real and go back to the root of what do my audience need to know? What do they need to think? What do they need to feel? What do you want them to do? And again, design for those different senses as well. I think you have to really play a part in not just thinking about what are my audience looking at and what are they listening to, but what is their whole experience? So in terms of that design of content, if it is something really complex, break it down, take the time. It might not be, you can't squeeze it all in an hour as you could have done perhaps in a e-learning or in a physical space. So really break it down and really start to think about how can I really engage my audience in a different way. It can't be, like I said before, the lift and shift. And I think going back to the environment that people are learning in. So again, how are you going to break through for people who might be waiting for the doorbell to ring for that Amazon order, or they're trying to get their lunch, or they've got to go and get the kids, or for me, I've just got a cat, so she's always running around. How are you engaging your audience in all of those experiences? And I think going back to what you're saying around that forgetting curve, you've got to really think about what is the key message. Go back to that key message. I think a lot of the time we overcomplicate the content, and actually simplifying it in the virtual world and stripping it back is a great place to start, and helping you build up and build onto that.
Stripping it back and focusing on that core message is a really great takeaway. Thanks, Rochelle. Stay where you are. We'll be back to you in just a few moments. And if you want to find out a little bit more about Rochelle's work, add her on LinkedIn. She's there with all of the cool kids. Or visit solved.com. I imagine it's just because the web domain was cheaper, but it's also quite clever, cool, interesting, and disruptive, just like the team at Solved. So thank you so much again, Rochelle. So let's dig deep now into the actual practicalities of virtual events that truly do jump off the screen, that are world-class. Can you create an extraordinary experience unlike any other to really break the gap between your last Zoom call and your next incredible virtual experience? Well, here to talk about just that, we are delighted to join Richard Bridge. Richard is the founder of award-winning creative communications agency Top Banana, who, after a recent acquisition, they are now part of brand experiences and live events agency TBA Group. And as a result, Rich has begun a brand new chapter as managing director of TBA's brand division. Now, Rich has specialized in creative events and communications for 25 years. You'd never know to look closely at him. And growing that passion into Top Banana really was a huge achievement. And it's a stellar business that has worked all across the world. And they are now strengthened by the TBA offering, and in partnership with the group and the agency, they're now able to offer expertise in high-level experiential events, specifically in the sports, brand, and entertainment industries. We're delighted to be joined by Richard today. Richard, thank you so much for coming to the Virtual Delegate. And I understand you're coming from on site. You're actually at an event.
I am actually at an event in a hotel, in a breakout room as we speak.
Fantastic. Well, look, Richard, thank you so much for coming and joining us. I really appreciate it. You have been overwhelmed, I know, with virtual events in the last year, because you've had more than a decade's experience of making sure that content really does jump through the screen. What have you learned about making compelling content that really does sing off and make the audience sit up and take notice?
I think the goes back to the start of the whole. All of a sudden, every event that we had planned literally fell off the edge of a cliff, and then we're starting to look and to trial new ways of engagement and trying to connect with audiences. I think where we were successful, maybe more than most, and quicker to market was my roots, and the roots of Top Banana lie in our film and television production side. And in essence, we've moved from event producers to TV producers. And in essence, when you think about how do you engage people more effectively, you have to think about it in a TV format, because you can communicating to people through a very small screen, often in looking at laptops. Talking to a camera that is a piece of black glass that you don't get any emotion or feedback from. So we started with that basis, and we started to think about, okay, what do the audiences need? How can we start to reach out, touch them, and entertain? Because I think that's I suppose the big piece of the puzzle is people remember things more when they're smiling, and therefore you want the memories to go away. Going back to the sort of 80% of forgetting things, is if they will remember things if they remember it during an event where they're smiling or entertained. And I think there's lots of television production techniques that we use, and in fact, David, you're using it today in terms of having multiple camera angles, changing the shot from full screen to a two shot. All of those things entertain the eyes and keep that viewer more engaged, because as Rochelle says, you've got the postman delivering the dog barking, so many distractions that you don't have in a live venue environment.
So tell me, when it comes to taking that often corporate-y, boring, not terribly exciting state of the nation, business updates that need to be delivered, how do you actually make them entertaining so that the material sticks? And I know that you and your team have worked incredibly hard to truly create Saturday night entertaining style TV shows that are customized, written from the ground up around your client, but they're a bit of a Trojan horse, aren't they, Rich, in that they're incredibly entertaining, they're fun, they're interactive, they're live, but they also get across a business message.
Absolutely, and I think the message is absolutely key. And how do we make it memorable? I think the challenge with business when you start talking to them is understanding their brand first and foremost, in terms of what's the personality of that brand, and how can we make sure that we're being true to that brand rather than just being quirky and crazy just for the sake of it. So it's important that we get across serious messages as part of it, but the audiences don't want to see a PowerPoint slide with a person in a box in a corner talking for hours on end about slide formats with a slide that's too detailed. And often they're watching it on smaller screens, as I say. So that you need to make sure you're bringing that content out. And we found that clients have embraced having more conversations rather than having standard PowerPoint presentations. And I think if you can tell a good story, it absolutely works really well. And I think the key of any good story is having a good questionnaire like yourself, David, in terms of eking out some of the messages as part of it. So a professional host is absolutely key to making sure you're getting the messages and keeping the energy up, because often when you're having conversations, you need energy jumping out of you at the screen. Otherwise, people are just going to switch off and they'll just fall asleep. So it's making sure you're having conversations, making sure you're being interactive. And we've worked a lot with a variety of comedians, entertainers, to try and bring messages alive through presentation, conversation, and then some form of interactive session. And Stephen Mulhern and yourself, David, one of our favorites in terms of making sure that the audiences are getting real, true takeaways, behaviors, and understand what's expected of them as they move forward.
And you bring up a good point, actually, because sometimes the message has to be boring, but of course, it can always be brought alive with a bit of showbiz. And I think our expectations of the quality of the experience online have massively changed, because everyone is saying at the moment, Rich, that we want less screen time. We're spending too much time on social media, too much time looking at our phones, too much time looking at our laptop. They close the laptop, have a quick bite to eat, and then put on Netflix for 4 hours. So the problem is not screen time. The problem is bad screen time. And when it's produced to match that level of quality, that level of production and experience, it really does make sure that the message lands. One last question, Rich. Every event that you and I have worked on together, and every one that we've done independently, there's always a session or two of some sort where, and I want to be kind to say this, but there's always a couple of internal people who are not natural speakers. Their job is not day and daily to bring material alive in an exciting and engaging way. How do you help them make sure that they do their best job, that their message lands, and it doesn't lose the attention of the audience?
I think again, it's speaking to those the speakers to understand what the objectives and what the real messages are. I think people try and fit too many messages into events, and they're trying to tick too many boxes, a bit like Rochelle said earlier. So it's making sure that you focus on maybe 3 key messages that you want out of the session. Can you put it into a conversation? So you're having a conversation. Can you get a guest speaker to interview? Can you get a guest speaker to bring real value in terms of another life experience for another sector, etc.? Or can you put it into a game show or a game format where you can actually bring learning alive through a form of entertainment? And that's been really interesting and powerful for us, whether it's the Saturday night takeaway type of events, or indeed inventing some of our own sort of game shows, like Take Me Out, for example, around customer service. There are lots of different ways of bringing some of those messages to life. And I think you just got to be creative with it, because creativity, the world has changed, it's moved to digital, and hybrid will come back, but it's you need to make sure you're staying creative in everything that we do, really.
And a big part of our job is also convincing the client that sometimes that important messages can be made in entertaining ways as well. Rich, thank you so much for joining us. Stay there. We'll have you back in a little second. And of course, if you want to find out anything more about Rich's work, then visit him and the team. Some of their work has been absolutely breathtaking. Worked with the biggest brands in the world and made it compelling, exciting, engaging, and dare I say it, fun. And remember, we are interactive here at the Virtual Delegate. If you've got any comment, if you've got any feedback, then put it inside the chat and we will get back to you a little bit later. And if you have missed any of the episodes so far, type the word recording in the comments and we'll make sure that you get everything that you have missed. Now, finally, when it comes to content, every once in a while, nothing beats getting a world-class speaker, someone who can bring their experience, their richness, their expertise to inspire the audience. And of course, gone are the days of just booking a speaker to do something after dinner. They now need to move the needle on the impact of the event. And that is where our next guest really does excel. Nck Gold draws on his 20 years experience in consulting, but also working with 7,500 speakers and servicing over 1,000 events per year to address the key pain points and opportunities that exist for event professionals. Nck is the managing director of the UK's leading international speakers bureau, Speakers Corner, and Nck has turned a bespoke entertainment bookings agency into a truly market-leading speaker bureau and consultancy that sits at the heart of the events industry. And in the last year, they have supplied more virtual speakers to events than anyone else in the world. So he is best placed to tell us how to get the best out of a virtual speaker. And Nck, we are delighted to have you join us. Thanks for coming to the Virtual Delegate.
David, thank you for having me here. Good to be with you.
Nck, I have to ask, as I mentioned earlier, there used to be a pretty simple rinse and repeat formula for corporate events. There'd be a buffet, there'd be an opening speaker, a closing speaker. One would be in sports, one would be inspirational. They probably climbed a mountain. But of course, that's all changed. Speakers now need to make a big impact. And I know that's where you and your team really do shine.
Yeah, I think, listen, it's exciting for speakers because we used to kind of get the call the day before an event saying, oh, we need to have that speaker. We need to fill in the keynote session at the end. Can you provide someone? And they'd come in and they do that regimented 45-minute or however long it was story and everyone would be happy. And then what happened with the pandemic and the move to virtual is a realization from our clients that what they need to do is engage with the speakers early. And actually, they need to build the event alongside the speakers rather than speakers just be dropped in. And it made it really exciting because actually it meant every event became bespoke, incorporating what the best way the speaker could deliver their message.
And it does mean that they can truly make a bigger impact at the event. If you choose the right speaker for the right audience with the right message, it does make an extraordinary difference and an extraordinary impact. But how has your work changed when it comes to selecting the right speaker for the right event? Nck, now that we are moving into virtual, are there speakers out there who really do excel in this virtual space?
Again, fascinating. We've seen a journey. At the beginning, the most important thing was you knew how to click on the right link on Zoom. And if your internet went a bit whiffy, everyone was on board with you and they'd allow you to go through it. And as time has gone on, the expectations of clients has gone, and also kind of visitors to the event has gone up and up and up. And what we're looking for from speakers is to be experts in the virtual environment and be clear about the type of speech they're giving and how they're delivering it. The content underneath it will be the same as what they delivered on a physical sense, but they're delivering bespoke to the environment they're working in. And so the speakers that are really stepping up to the mark and really delivering are the ones who, as Richard said, have got that studio set up and understand how best they can work for themselves and they can work the technical equipment around them to really deliver something magical.
Well, tell me, what does work well? Does comedy work well in virtual? Does inspirational work well in virtual? How are you managing to make it feel as close as we can to an actual real live in-person event?
Anything can work well. And I'm really I can't remember whether Richard or it was Rochelle who said it. But the critical thing now is it's no longer speaking, it's conversations. Because you've got to break down the third wall of the screen. You've got to be interacting with each person individually. And if you can do that, then the message you're going to be delivering and the comedy you're going to be delivering, the inspirational message, people will feel part of it. The same way in the physical world, you felt part of it because you were involved in that room. Actually, if a speaker can break it down, actually interact with people, get them involved, be on the journey with them, then the truth is it doesn't matter what type of messaging you're delivering, or whether you're an inspirational, motivational, or sporting speaker. That doesn't matter. What matters is the fact you're connecting with your audience.
One last little boring logistical piece, if you don't mind me asking. Surely for some speakers who have got a great technical setup, who can deliver well virtually and remotely, for some of them, this must be an extraordinary opportunity, because now they don't need to get on EasyJet on Tuesday, be in the Hilton on Wednesday, and then back in Ryanair on Thursday. Are they really jamming their schedules with 2 to 3 events a day, continuing one after the other?
So I think there's two elements to this. I think the truth of the matter is, I am very bullish about the whole thing. I think it's an amazing opportunity for speakers to redevelop themselves and create a whole new marketplace for themselves. Because the truth is, the physical event, which, as and when hopefully it comes back soon, and with Richard at the event as a live event, that's great news, is going to be another element alongside the virtual. They deliver two different things. One, you get the physical networking and you get the part of being there together, but the other way, the virtual, is something where you can disseminate a message to lots and lots of different people very, very quickly. And a speaker who can deliver on both has to see the marketplace as a chance for them to actually kind of exceed all expectations. I mean, the truth is, yes, kind of it is very easy to deliver kind of multiple speeches a day, but we've all experienced now speaking on camera, and in my view, it's even more exhausting than it ever was on stage, where you have the natural energy of the room taking you through it. And I think speakers are realizing this and starting to actually understand that to continually deliver at the very best, they need to make sure they've got the energy in order to give it out to the camera, give it out to the delegates who attend.
Well, Nick, I think we need the keys to the vault now. Give us your top 3 virtual speakers. Who have you delivered to clients and they just nail it every time? Who's the best?
So the person who immediately springs to mind is a guy called Duncan Wardle, who was the creative director for Disney, and he switched to virtual. He transformed he's got a studio in his house. It was a spare bedroom in his house, but he is completely interactive the whole way through. He uses breakout rooms, he uses polls, he uses every single little bit of gadget. And his message, his thing right now is even moving now, doing more and more stuff in the virtual environment. And he just says that's where it's all going to go. So very much I highlight Duncan, but then David, I'm with you, and I'm not going to let this opportunity pass. And you've absolutely grasped the whole thing. You know something, you work with the client all the way through the steps from the initial conversation. And that's what we're looking for from clients, is actually to work with their speakers, not see them as a bit that gets dropped in at the last minute. Use and abuse your speakers. Enjoy the fact that they are there to help you. And those speakers have done more kind of virtual events and can provide you more expertise than anyone else. I think that's what you do so fantastically. And I've got to stop praising you.
Well, I mean, if you could get me a T-shirt with that on it, I would appreciate it. But it's very kind. And truth is, from my point of view as a speaker, we've delivered over 100 virtual events since the pandemic came in, and they definitely do involve more work. They involve more prep. They involve more briefs. However, as a consequence, I think as someone who is coming into a business for a short period of time does a better job. They understand the culture, the challenges, the opportunities, the personality of the place, not just what is difficult and exciting for them today, but longitudinally in the future as well. So Nck, I'm so encouraged to see that speakers are busy and that they're delivering great work externally and remotely as well. So let's bring back Rochelle and Rich. It's lovely to have you all. So one last question to each of you. Rochelle, what do you think is the future? How soon will we move to a hybrid model? And do you think it'll ever be the same as it was 18 months ago?
I mean, I don't think it will be the same. And actually, there's great opportunity in that, of it not being the same. But I do think a hybrid model will happen really soon. Even with working with Solve, we've been working with them for some time, and we actually only met a few weeks ago. But that there's such great interactivity in that, you know, whether it's social, whether it's more formal. So I think people will move to a hybrid model soon. But I also think that organizations should be patient with their employees, for those that want to come back to the office and those that don't. So I think each organization will be different, but really listen to your employees, and again, make it social, whether it is virtual, whether it's in person, but take the time, strip it back, and be patient.
And Nck, what about the future of your team? Will you all be working together or remotely in the medium and long term?
So the guys are already coming back in the office, because ultimately we work with a lot of speakers, but actually it's the input from each individual person and the feedback we get. So they're enjoying being together. Now, that's not going to be 5 days a week or anything like that, but actually they're coming in as and when they see fit, or when they've got kind of an inquiry for a client where they need to bounce off ideas. That's when they come in and get together, and they're enjoying that as much as they're enjoying the freedom of being able to work where they want to work.
And finally, Richard, it's almost like you and your team were made for a pandemic. You're broadcast professionals, you're TV professionals. Do you see that this hybrid and this virtual model at the high quality end is here to stay?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as Rochelle put it, it's about having choice and making sure you're there for the audiences, because companies still need to communicate whether there's a pandemic or no pandemic. Hybrid will be I suppose the next step in the journey back to face-to-face and fully face-to-face. But I think hybrid will always play a part in terms of reaching more people, and people, in the shorter term, building confidence in the event sector, so people can come to a venue if they choose to do that. But if they don't, then they're able to watch and take part at home. And giving them choice, I think, is really important, because I think we still need to engage those audiences and making sure we deliver on that promise. We're already working on technologies that enable us to make sure that we're dealing with both audiences and giving them the best experience, because what you can't do is just stream, as we used to do, a live event with a PowerPoint slide at the side and a camera. You need to create a TV studio in a venue and then have audiences there watching that TV production, and think of it like that, rather than thinking I'm just putting a normal conference on, because it's not a normal conference anymore. And that's what hybrid in essence is.
Richard, can you make me a hologram? Is that where we're going to next? Will I be virtual Dave next year?
I don't think nobody could cope with two of you, David. I don't think we're ready for that.
Look, thank you so much to all three of you. Rochelle, thank you to Rich, and thank you to Nick. It has been lovely to have you here on the Virtual Delegate. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll catch up with you all soon. Let's try and do a virtual high five. Can we do a high five? Can we do a high five? Can we do it? Can we do it? It was a terrible idea. It looked like we were in Megaloof. Thanks all three of you, and I'll catch up with you again soon. And of course, thanks to every single one of you for taking the time to join us here on the Virtual Delegate. This has been a busy episode, over 400 viewers across the channel live, and I know many of you will be watching this a little bit later afterwards in the replay. So I know that we try to make sure that we keep you involved. So if you have a case study that you would love to be featured on the show, if you have an amazing innovation or an incredible tool, then get in touch. We would love to feature it here on the Virtual Delegate. Your brand new ideas have a home here at the Virtual Delegate, and remember to share the show with your colleagues. So put it on your Twitter, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, on your Periscope, which I imagine is still a thing. I haven't looked in a while. But also our next episode is going to be on tackling your tech. How do you make sure that you are watertight from a technology point of view, so that stream never drops, so that material and that critical content is never interrupted? And we're giving away a chocolate bar every episode. So I'm going to look to the right-hand side, so I can't see who I'm picking here. Going to scroll up and down, up and down, up and down. And our winner is Christine McLean. Christine, you should immediately open a contract cleaning business with a name like that. But don't worry, you've cleaned up today. We will send you a chocolate bar. Send us a little message, and we will make sure that it gets into your inbox as soon, your actual inbox, not your virtual inbox, I promise you. And of course, thanks to every single one of you for being part of today's show. We've loved doing this. We've loved pulling it together. There are 4 more episodes, and I hope that we'll get to see you at another future juncture. See you next week, next Wednesday on the Virtual Delegate.